Hello and welcome to Fine Arts channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to carve a sperm whale out of this chunk of willow wood. Willow wood is a very easy to carve wood, as you can see, and it is ideal for beginners. I've roughed out some plans here that I'm going to be using as reference for when I'm carving the whale. I have a side view and a top view, so we have multiple angles and reference points for our carving. This end of the piece of wood will be for the fluke as it is wider, and this end will be for the rest of the body. So let's get started. To get started, our materials are going to be, obviously, our chunk of wood, which can be replaced with any wood of your choice. Pine works well, basswood works well, you could even use maple. For our tools, we're going to be using this chisel, which is also replaceable with a carving knife, utility knife, or pocket knife. And we also need a serrated knife, and this is just going to be to carve some of the grooves in the whale, particularly the jaw. You're also going to need 2 grits of sandpaper. This is 220 grit here, and I also have some 60 grit sandpaper there. You might also want to have some steel wool, 0000 steel wool, that's 4 zeros, and this will give it a really nice buff and sheen. As always, you want to have safety in mind. I'm going to have gloves on, and I'm also going to put on some eye protection as well. So I'll put both of those on now. And the gloves. Alright, now we're ready to get carving. The first step in carving this is going to be getting the main shape ready. As you can see, the top of the whale is relatively narrow, while the side of the whale is quite large and also has quite a few bumps on the back. We're also going to be kind of caving out these areas so we can have a smaller jaw. Now, the first real step comes when you have to draw in the design for the whale, and this is going to come in really handy, as you don't need to refer back to your picture and constantly be making measurements. Alright, so our drawings have been magically transferred for us. I also drew in the side drawings, although that wasn't really necessary, as the first step is going to be thinning this down to shape. Now, it's also important to consider the flippers. Although they don't splay out like in most whales, they do still protrude out from the body a little bit, so it's important to be aware of that. I'm going to rough out the entire shape of the whale, and this isn't too hard. It might take you 20-30 minutes to do. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll come back and do the next few steps. The first step of the process is now complete, and most of the hard work has already been completed. So as you can see, at this point, I've roughed out the entire shape of the whale, including the tail fin. I also caved out this area for the lower jaw and also cut some fins out of the wood. Now the next step is to get rid of all these scuff marks and deep lines like this, and you just have to go really slowly with your chisel and just kind of get into those grooves there and just flatten it all out. There is still a lot of work to be done on this, and we are going to sand and buff after this. Another thing I want to mention at this point is we're not going to actually cut all the way into the jaw. We're just going to cut a groove with our serrated knife to indicate the jawline. And it is also very pronounced by itself, being that these areas are caved in. So I'm going to do that and come back here and talk about sanding. Let's get started. The whale has now been completely smoothed out and is ready for sanding. I've removed any gashes as well as added the jawline. Any gashes that I missed can easily be taken care of with sandpaper. A couple of things I wanted to talk about. The fluke at this point has become quite thin, and on any wood, especially if it's willow wood or pine wood, thin areas are very prone to cracking, especially along the grain, and as you can see, the grain flows right through, so this tail could snap off at any point. If you need to make adjustments to the tail, do them very carefully with a serrated knife. Do not try to use your chisel or carving knife for this. Also, fun bit of trivia, a sperm whale's blowhole is located right about there, and we're going to be drilling that in after the sanding process. There are 2 eye holes here and here, and we're also going to be drilling those after sanding. Bringing out my sandpaper, I have my 60 grit and my 220 grit sandpaper. I'm going to hit it up with my 60 grit first, and I might also use a scrap like this to get into any of these sharper areas. Then I'm going to switch over to my 220 grit and likewise use a same scrap of 220 grit sandpaper to get into the grooves there as well. So let's get started. The sanding process is complete, and I think it turned out marvelously. There's still a couple of spots, such as here on this fin, which might need a little bit of sanding. However, for the most part, this whale is complete. We have a couple of details to add in here. The blowhole is to the left and at the very front of the whale, and we'll be marking the eyes right about here and here. Yep. Okay, so to put in the blowhole and the eyes, you could use the tip of your knife. Go in like that. Or you could also use, if you have one of these, a precision chisel, and they're very, very small and great for detailed work. I happen to have one of these, and this gives me a lot of control. So I'm just going to use this There we go. You could also use a drill bit if you wanted to. Let's put in the eyes. This one is a rounded kind of chisel, and you can just circle it around. Again, you could use your knife. Okay. So to get rid of any scuffs right near the eye, I'm just going to sand it just like that. And now I'm going to remove my gloves to have easier control. And we're going to bring in our steel wool. And you're just going to buff this as much as you want, and the more you do it, the smoother it gets. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to come back and finish it with some wax. So I finished buffing with the steel wool. It's not as pretty as it could have been, and I could buff it a lot more. And if you wanted to go further, you could just keep going up in terms of sandpaper grit and get a really, really nice finish. But I'm going to leave it here. And if the steel wool gets caught in some of the little areas in your wood, you could just vacuum them all up with a magnet. I don't know why, but a ton gets stuck on my work table. So I'll just get rid of those. Look at that. If you've been watching my channel and you're subscribed to it, you'll know that I like to use this wax conditioner. And this spreads really easily, provides a nice protective finish, and it also makes it look quite nice. Of course, you could use any other finish of your choice. You could use a cloth to apply this. Here I'm just using my fingers. This just brings out the rich grain of the willow that you never knew it had. And remember to get it into that groove and into the eye holes. I have a rag here that I can use to wipe off any extra that we might have. And there we go. We're done. So here you have it, our wooden sperm whale that we carved out of a block of willow wood. I really enjoyed this project, and if you did too, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. I would really, really appreciate that. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.